How would I want Elena to be remembered? I think, well, one is, I guess, not so much the how, but that I want her to be remembered. And that's something that I struggle with a lot. You know, it's been 8 years since she died. And I think our family, and I know I do, I struggle with that the memory and the feeling of who she was, like her presence, it fades. It fades over time. And it's, you can't hold on to that physical essence of somebody when they're not here anymore. There's all these cards from her Girl Scout troop. And then she loved American Girl dolls. So we went to the American Girl place in Chicago. And there's Elena. Brown shirt.
You know, we already got settled, so. Yeah. Ooh, there she is. We're finally going, right? Yay!
I feel, like from a very young age, she lived like today was her last day. And in some ways, that's because you never knew. I'm Cindy Luxhoj, founder of the Alagille Syndrome Alliance and mother of Alaina Hahn, who was born with Alagille syndrome. So when Elena was born in 1990, I had a really unremarkable pregnancy. I didn't gain very much weight, but then it was my first baby, and so I had no idea what was normal or not. And she came one day early and came backwards. She was a breech baby, which was a total surprise. But really, by all appearances, normal. When she was just a couple days old, I might have still been in the hospital, she was yellow. She started getting yellow, and we thought that it was neonatal jaundice, and had a series of bilirubin tests. And it appeared for a while that it was resolving itself, so we didn't think that anything was wrong. But then a couple months later, it was back. The bilirubin was skyrocketing again, and so eventually she was diagnosed with Alagille syndrome, and this was at Seattle Children's Hospital. And so we were going to a support group for kids with liver conditions called Liver Spot there. And it was great. It was a lot of help for us because we didn't know anybody else with this disease, and unfortunately there wasn't anybody else in the group that had Alagille syndrome like Elena. But at least from a perspective of it being a support group for liver disease parents, it was helpful. But then when she was officially diagnosed with Alagille syndrome, which was after an open liver biopsy when she was about 1.5 years old, and Dr. Tarr, her gastroenterologist, in the consult, he handed me an article by Dr. Alagille. And he said, well, this is pretty much what we know about Alagille syndrome. And I looked at it and I said, this was written in 1975. This is 1990. This was 15 years ago. And he said, yeah, I know. Unfortunately, we don't really have much more information than that. And that was not enough for me. I tend to just start researching when I don't have information. And so the combination of having this article from 15 years ago and going to a support group with nobody else who had Alagille syndrome really kind of prompted me to think about starting a support group. And it was at a time too when you didn't have support. There weren't support groups. And there wasn't internet, there wasn't email, but I was bound and determined that I was going to find other families with Alagille syndrome and help Elena as she grew to know others and to not feel alone. There was another doctor in her lab gave me the data about the Alliance. May I first of all congratulate you for your initiative and your effort. I wanted to be able to use this as the opening address at the symposium, but I went through and edited it. And I sent it back to him, and I said, is this okay? Are you okay with me the way I've edited it? And he said, Professor Alagille, hi, I've kind of shortened the speech up, and he wrote back and he said, thank you so much for your letter. I have very few remarks to suggest concerning the corrected text. May I tell you once again how I'm deeply sad to not be able to be with you during the meeting. I wish the best success in it, as I would like to tell that to all the attendants. I sent out a letter to a bunch of different organizations that had anything to do with rare disease or liver, and found 3 other families through the National Organization for Rare Diseases rare disorders, and sent out this newsletter and said, hey, could you put this in your newsletter? Could you let me know if you know any families with Alagille syndrome? And so we started with those 3 families, and the word spread. And as the story got out into these different publications, people started contacting me. And other families who had found the Alliance also started referring other families to us. And so we really, from November '93, which is when Elena was just over 3 years old, when I started it, we just kept growing and growing. And I eventually incorporated as a nonprofit organization, and including my brother and Elena's dad as our founding board of directors, and then applied for 501c3 nonprofit status, and eventually got that, and just kept going. Planned the 1998 first ever symposium on Alagille syndrome, which was so wonderful. Got to meet all of these families that we'd only been talking to on the phone or corresponding with, and also got to meet David Piccoli and others from Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, who were on our first medical advisory board. And that was just the start. And the organization has grown and grown. I never anticipated that it would become of the size and scale that it is today. And initially we called it AGS, not ALGS. Brought to you by Cindy Luxhoj. 2 people dancing on a liver. One of the things that we do, we had Elena cremated. That's what she wanted. And then we take her ashes to places all over the world and leave them, and we take pictures. Behind the Harambo huts on Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, she's in this really cool old tree, I'm not sure what species it is, that has a wonderful view of the Diana Fountain in London. She's in the canal in Vienna. She's, let's see, she's in Croatia and in many places in the Pacific Northwest as well. And I'm going to take some of her ashes to India in October this year. It'll be 10 years since she and I made a trip there, and so I'm going to take some of them back to the Taj Mahal and to where the Ganges River originates in the Himalaya. But you know, I mean, beyond that, I think that I just, you know, I want her to be remembered also for just the pivotal role that she played in my founding of the Alliance. If she hadn't been born with Alagille syndrome, I never would have founded the organization. And it opened my eyes to a whole world of rare disease that I had no clue even existed. And, you know, and just that it was so important to her as she got older that, you know, that she provide support and just assistance, that she be involved, you know, with the Alliance, that she could help families, and she loved it. You know, she loved making jewelry for the Alliance. She loved just everything about it. Because it was a big part of her life. And so I want her to be remembered. And I think that's just the most important thing.